God Almighty, we recognize the divine authority and power and leadership comes from you. We thank you for the London Borough of Hillingdon, and we're grateful for all our people, for the peace, for the love, for the blessing that you have given to us in this community from over the years. Thank you for the head of our council, for his cabinet. We thank you for the opposition party, for the democratic services, and the collective councillors and the words they represent. We also thank you for all the civil servants that sees to the running of this beloved council. Our Heavenly Father, today we come to you on behalf of our leaders in this evolving year that we are, and we pray that your mercy will work in favor for them. We pray that though things have been economically tough, your mercy will bring for us in this borough a season of prosperity, that you will lead and guide our leaders. Talk about the mayor, the councillors, the cabinet, and all of those who are in everyday seeing to the running of our beloved council and society, that you will give unto us, O Lord, the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that will bring us a new harvest. O Lord God, let your mighty hand of protection defend our people and our community through the evil within and outside of this borough. We welcome you that you will rekindle the covenant of righteousness, love, and kindness that established this borough when it was started in 1965. Father, Lord, we ask that you shine your light into the hearts of all of our community. Oh God, let our children and their children's, oh God, inherit this land by your glory in the name of Jesus. Almighty Father, we depend on you for your absolute counsel. Let us not be put to shame at this time. Let our future be strong and healthy and secured. Father, we pray that according to Ecclesiastes 6:7-8, that says that the better of a thing is always better than the beginning. Oh God, let this year, by the time it runs out, be better, stronger, and more victorious for the London Borough of Hillingdon. All this we pray in thanksgiving, in the name of our Father, and through the Son, and through the Holy Spirit. Father God, we thank you that you will lead the deliberations of tonight in this council meeting. Let this evening be guided with unity of purpose. Let your peace reign and rule amongst us and the heart of everyone. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you, and welcome to Hillingdon Council's meeting of the 14th of July 2022. Welcome everyone. On your order of business papers, we start with order number 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I have 2 apologies, one from Councillor Burrows, one from Councillor Gill.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Also apologies from Councillor Peter Money.
Lovely, thank you. Order number 2 is the minutes. We have received the minutes of the meeting. It's actually 2 council meetings, one held on the 24th of February and one held on the 12th of May. Is that agreed? Thank you. We now move on to order number 3, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a non-pecuniary interest in agenda item 5.4 because I know Mr Graham Armour.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. We now move on to order number 4, which is my announcements. It seems such a long time ago since our last council meeting in May, and myself, my consort Marius, and my 2 escorts, Ellie May and Pollyanna, have found ourselves in a wonderful position of being immersed into the Platinum Jubilee celebrations. Representing Hillingdon has been a real blessing, and it is apparent, so apparent, that throughout the borough, from south to north, there has been nothing but thanks and appreciation from residents for all the hard work every councillor and every officer puts in to make this borough the best. The Platinum Jubilee, celebrating the 70 years of our Queen Elizabeth, brought with it newly found joy, new friends. It encouraged residents to come out of their homes, literally, and communities to come back. To come back together again after the long 2 years of COVID. It was a breath of fresh air. The lighting of the beacon was a memorable moment for us all. And with over 100 street parties, our staff, Joe and Sue, Andy and Chris, knuckled down into what we called Operation Platinum. And it was all done in what we now call the secret operations room. And the children love that when they come and the door's shut. We go, you can't go in there, it's a secret room. Everything works from there. It was incredible that we all managed to attend the street parties, but this wouldn't have been possible if it hadn't been for the support of Marius and the girls, so thank you, and the support of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Hamid Walana, thank you, and the Deputy Mayoress as well, and also the past Mayor and past Mayoress Shamdal, thank you. And also a thank you to all our councillors. I know many of you attended street parties across your street and your ward, so thank you. Together, we've lifted up Hillingdon Borough in this historical celebration. We have really enjoyed our time so far. We've done roughly over 106 events. Our favourite has been the school parlour visits and our school council debates that we hold in here with the children, as well as encouraging charities and supporting groups that come to visit. We've been visiting our care homes, who have really triumphed coming through COVID with a great resilience and a great growth. Chris and Andy have not only just had to have been drivers, but during the Platinum they've had to be bodyguards and they've had to be historians, and they've done a fantastic job. There have been so many memorable events and celebrations. Some of them have included the Hayes Canal Festival and David Bruff's 50 years of service in Hayes. Absolutely unbelievable. We've also visited Hillingdon and Harefield hospitals, encouraging and connecting people. In fact, on one trip in Harefield, we brought 3 patients together. One was an 18-year-old who had just had his heart replaced only 5 weeks ago, with one gentleman who'd had a heart transplant for 27 years, to one gentleman who was waiting. And by them all coming together, it really made a difference to their lives. We also hosted the interfaith groups in the parlour, which was a wonderful way of connecting all faiths together. And our thanks go to everyone who's been lifting us up in prayer. We know we all feel the joy in the parlour. We also applaud the work that the staff do here in the council, especially the project research and the libraries. absolutely amazing. I recommend everyone has a look at Project Research. It really is fantastic. We have continued to work with Brunel University, with their volunteers and with our charities, and the charities have really enjoyed working with Brunel, but also have got some really good advice. As you're aware, our charities are the Daniela Logan Foundation and the Magical Marvellous Picture House. And we wanted to really embrace and support our charities, but at the same time, also support Hillingdon with its businesses and its communities. So we came up with a great idea of hosting 4 to 5 large events over the year. And these events are multicultural, showing and embracing the diversity of our borough. We have managed to get businesses on board who have provided sponsorship, and that means that all the ticket cost goes to the charities. The first charity event we have, which I'm sure you all know, but just in case you don't, it is on the Friday the 22nd of July. It's Bollywood night, and just for £20 you receive a wonderful Indian meal from the amazing Namaste Lounge in Northwood, and we will also be entertained by, I'm sure many of you know him, Jay Kumar doing his Bollywood dancing, which you can also have a go at too. It also includes the fastest sari dresser in town and a secret surprise. So please do invite your family and friends to enjoy the night. Keep a lookout for the future events. I'm not going to tell you what they are. You're going to have to keep a lookout, and I'm going to keep you guessing. Some will be revealed at the next council meeting. So just to end it, we've thoroughly enjoyed the past few months and have been really proud to be able to represent Hillingdon. We're looking forward to a busy few months ahead, and we embrace and make the most of every moment, recognising that everyone we meet has an array of impact to our borough in Hillingdon. Thank you. Okay, we now move on to the order of business, and we're now on item 5, the report from Head of Democratic Services, and we're going to be going to the leader, Councillor Ian Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I do apologise for my report not being as exciting and uplifting as yours. Madam Mayor, item 5.1 lists the decisions to be noted by Council made under the urgency procedures since we last met in May. The 3 recommendations at 5.2, 5.3 and 5.4 are procedural in nature, and with your permission, I shall move them together. Item 5.2 proposes 3 changes to the membership of select committees. 5.3 brings into effect the amendment to Standing Order 15 regarding the adjournment debates, which was considered at the annual council in May. And 5.4 proposes that Mr. Graham Armour, who is present in the chamber tonight, be appointed as the Standards Committee independent person for a 4-year period to July 2026. I so move those recommendations.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Madam Mayor, I second and reserve my right.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Is that agreed? Thank you. We now move on to order number 6, which is confirmation of Article 4, direction to remove permitted development rights in the parts of the borough. This is to be moved by Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I formally move item 6 to agree the implementation of the Article 4 direction as shown on the order paper. The Article 4 direction restricts permitted development rights in certain areas of the borough and types of property to ensure that we retain proper planning control over these changes. These were first considered by Council 12 months ago and were subject to a 12-month consultation period, which has expired for most of them and is about to expire for the rest. The report has 4 recommendations, which I now formally move.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Tuck.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I'd like to second and reserve my right. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Moving on to Order 7, which is questions from members. Starting with question 7.1 from Councillor Banjuri.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member please advise why the Council built a family hub at the Civic Centre, and since it has opened, how has it been working for Hillingdon families?
Thank you. And we have a response from Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Banerjee this evening for asking the question regarding the Family Hub. The Uxbridge Family Hub is a recently new space that was repurposed on the mezzanine floor at the Civic Centre. It is a bright, open, contemporary, modern space which is welcoming for children, young people and their families. The hub offers one front door to an array of services, and I would invite at some point during this year that the Children's, Families and Education Select Committee come for a visit, please. I know that in the meeting that they had the other week, Councillor Dott mentioned about children's centres and wanted to know more about them, so this is a good opportunity, I think, for the committee itself. Uxbridge Family Hub has been fully operational since November 2021, and during this period the teams located there have worked together to ensure that everyone who visits the hub are welcomed and directed to the right support team to meet their needs. Since its inception, the services have supported over 618 children and young people, 499 parents and carers, and in total over 1,100 residents. Many of the users will have attended a number of sessions to receive the support they need to get them through a particular phase in their life. Some will return, some will not, and may be signposted even to another service. Family hubs are designed to be a means of providing an integrated family service through one access point. They provide families with children aged 0 to 19 and up to 25-year-olds for young adults with special educational needs, somewhere they know they can go if they need information, advice or guidance on family, relationship and other issues like parenting and small children and for parenting for small children and babies or adolescents. As when services are integrated effectively, they help users access additional support they had not realised that a child may even need. The Early Years Healthy Development Review Report, The Best Start for Life, led by Dame Andrea Leadsom, MP, who Councillor Palmer and I were very happy to meet and discuss her publication of the visions of the first 1,001 days of a child's life from conception to age 2. The review reports champions families' hubs as a place where families can access support in the early years of their child's life through the delivery of a local Start for Life offer, incorporating access to maternity, health visitors, primary care teams and early education providers, alongside supporting for parents and reducing parental conflict. The hub provides a base where services can outreach into the community and engage with residents in a way that best meets their needs, whether it's face-to-face or as an online offer. As a council, we are committed to ensuring that families and their children are able to access the right help at the right time, and the Family Hub enables this by providing local families with access to information, advice, support, and bringing together those wide ranges of services in an integrated way, including the Uxbridge Children's Centre, the Supervised Contact Service, the Adolescent Development Services, the Multi-Agency Psychology Service, and the Youth Justice Service. The hub has been developed with a wide range of uses in mind, with safe places to play and learn for our youngest children, relaxed and comfortable spaces for parents to have supervised contact with their children, spaces to support and facilitate therapeutic work, a clinical space to deliver midwifery, health clinics, and also a fully equipped lifestyle kitchen that enables children and young people of all ages and for various different reasons to learn how to cook and prepare healthy and nutritious meals and to gain skills for life. The Family Hub does even greater role by not only providing access to council-run services, but also provides a safe space for children, young people and their families to access a broad range of services to support their health and well-being, delivered with our partners from the health and voluntary sectors. These include trauma and loss groups, which are delivered by maternity services, a drop-in stay and play session for hearing impaired children run by the SEND services, counselling services delivered by Barnardo's, and family group conferences supported by Daybreak. Additionally, social care officers regularly hold one-to-one meetings with young people in the hub, and the Children's Social Care Court team have started to use this space to deliver a workshop for parents. The hub has been a tremendous success in engaging with residents in a way that best meets their needs.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Banji?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I do. How is the Family Hub meeting the needs of all children and young people, for example, adolescents?
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you very much again, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Banerjee. So this is a good thing. The good thing about the Family Hub is that it provides a mixed use of dynamic spaces that supports both one-to-one and group work delivery. There are a wide range of targeted support services for adolescents being delivered from the Uxbridge Family Hub. To name but a few, the Adolescent Development Service, LINK, programmes utilises the hub surroundings to deliver face-to-face emotional health and well-being counselling with KISS, the sexual health programme, who provide both clinical intervention and counselling support services. The Sorted programme routinely delivers sessions on substance misuse and awareness, whilst also providing an education forum for professionals. In addition, gender-based group programmes and bespoke interventions are delivered from the large open spaces. The hub is a fully functioning home kitchen, as I've just mentioned, and this provides tailored programme for care leavers, whereby individuals learn cooking, household budgeting, which is really important for our care leavers, and finances, and basic household maintenance skills. On average, 70 children and young people access adolescent development services at the Family Hub each week. The Youth Justice Service operates from the Family Hub as well, delivering both one-to-one, group work and community interventions to children and young people who have come into contact with the criminal justice system. The hub provides a safe community base to promote engagement and facilitates input from a range of specialists in one location. Utilising the resources available within the hub and the Youth Justice Service fulfils its approach to seeking justice for all by holding victim and offender conferences as well as reparation activities, for example, baking and cooking culturally diverse food for homeless shelters, creating memory boxes for people with dementia and bird boxes for green spaces out within our borough. On average, over 30 children and young people access the Youth Justice Service at the hub each week. Children and young people who may have previously had to attend a variety of locations to access services can now do so in one space, which is safe, bright and welcoming. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Moving on to question 7.2, submitted by Councillor Makwana to the Cabinet Member of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could the Cabinet Member please provide an update as to the latest financial position on the dedicated schools grant?
Thank you. Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Makwana, for the question. The responsibility for local authorities to provide educational and healthcare support to children who have been determined as having special educational needs and disabilities is defined by the Children's and Families Act 2014. Under this legislation, local authorities are obliged to provide such support potentially from birth up to the age of 25. The cost of this support, and indeed all other state educational activity, is dealt through each local authority's dedicated schools grant or DSG for short. This grant, this fund, is ring-fenced, and the funding for the activities of the DSG are provided by the Department of Education. Ring-fencing means that to the extent to which expenditure exceeds the funding provided by the DFE, then the overspend, i.e. the deficit, cannot be met from a local authority's general fund unless specifically authorised by the Secretary of State. This is a provision of the Schools and Early Years Finance Regulations England 2020 and hence has the full force of law. Madam Mayor, there are no known instances where the Secretary of State has so authorised disapplication of this provision other than with the expressed agreement of a local authority. In the case of Hillingdon, the impact of the Children's and Families Act and the far greater general awareness of conditions such as autism has seen an explosive increase in our numbers of resident children with defined high needs. In 2014-15, this amounted to 1,503 children. By 2021-22, this number had risen to 2,855. Throughout this time, Hillingdon has fully and diligently met its obligations under the 2014 Act and has paid for this. Sadly, the DFE's funding formulas simply have not kept pace with this escalation, and as a result, Hillingdon's dedicated schools grant entered into deficit for the first time in 2016-17. Inevitably, the impact of the pandemic considerably inhibited our ability to take action of substance for a period in excess of 2 years. But by 31st of March 2021, the deficit on our DSG had risen to £25.4 million, and projections were indicating that without intervention, a peak deficit of £56 million would be reached by 2023-24. However, the following actions were initiated within the 21-22 financial year. Firstly, transformational measures were identified and instituted, which, when fully realised, will serve to reduce the deficit by £11 million over the next 4 years. These measures will see us return to an in-year break-even position on the DSG by 2025-26. And indeed, Councillor O'Brien will give further insight into this programme later in this meeting. Secondly, a safety valve agreement was negotiated with the DFE, which will see Hillingdon receive a repayment of £25 million from the DFE, 11 million of which has already been received, with the balance of 14 million to be received over the following 4 years. Hillingdon has already spent the funds which make up the deficit, and so our remaining obligation is to write off £40 million a year over the 5-year life of this agreement. Madam Mayor, this is a bookkeeping exercise. No further cash will be paid by Hillingdon, and the entries to be made will not hit our reserves, but will be covered from capital receipts. So, without the safety valve agreement, our DSG deficit at the 31st of March 2022 would have stood at 38.5 million. But as a result of the agreement, it was reduced to 23.5 million, and it is projected that the 31st of March 2023 position will be 20.5 million, and we expect to return to a net nil position by 2025-26. Not only has this position been agreed, but we have also secured £6 million of additional grant funding from the DFE to cover the first wave of capital costs in the transformation programme. Clearly, it is a major priority and a challenge for us to manage down the impact of cost inflation that we all know we are experiencing in these uncertain times. But nevertheless, this represents a major achievement and is in stark contrast to the fortunes of many other authorities who are only now starting to confront this same issue. A survey conducted by the Society of County Treasurers has concluded that as at the 31st of March 2022, the aggregate deficiencies of local authorities in England in respect of high needs amounted to £2.4 billion. Let me repeat that, £2.4 billion. with authorities in London sustaining deficits amounting to 432 million. By the 31st of March 2026, the national aggregate deficit will have reached £3.6 billion. Hillingdon is only one of 14 authorities out of 151 nationally who have entered into safety valve agreements, and the maximum aggregate deficits within those authorities amounted to £615 million. So, Madam Mayor, what are the inescapable conclusions arising from these facts? Firstly, Hillingdon was never at risk of bankruptcy because of this issue. The ring fencing law in place assures us of that. Okay? Secondly, Hillingdon did not receive a special bailout from central government. We are one of 14 authorities so far, and there is a long queue of others waiting to enter into a similar process. And finally, the agreement reached will not have any adverse impact on the frontline services we provide to our residents, nor will it affect future levels of council tax. Madam Mayor, these three conclusions are in stark contrast to the misinformation which was promulgated by the party opposite during the recent election. It is not for me to conclude whether they have sought to deliberately mislead the electorate or whether they simply do not understand the workings of the DSG. But in either event, it reflects upon them shamefully. And furthermore, the electorate didn't believe them. They are still in opposition. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Coddard. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor McWarner?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We shall now move on to 7.3 on the order form. Questions submitted by Councillor Sullivan to the Cabinet Member of Children, Families and Education.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member please provide an update on the progress of the development of additional SEND provision for residents across the borough linked to the DSG safety valve agreement? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Susan O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Sullivan for asking the question regarding this Council's additional local SEND offer. I will add in my answer, there will be no numbers. To meet the needs of Hillingdon children and young people accessing education in the borough, not only will this transformational provision provide educational outcomes, but it will mean that our resident children will be able to access local services and be part of their local communities. This too makes financial sense as it reduces the need for pupils to access high cost, out of borough provision, and even in some cases reduces the need for travel transport. As part of the dedicated schools grant safety valve agreement, there are a number of projects underway to increase the local capacity, which include the following. The Eden Academy will be opening 2 satellite provisions on the Pinkwell School site from September 2022. The satellite units are for children with profound and moderate learning difficulties and will serve up to 16 primary places and up to 24 secondary places. The satellite schools will also have on-site a therapeutic provision to offer additional support and therapies appropriate to the needs of the student. In addition, in September 2022, the development of the post-19 SEND provision will increase at Orchard Hill Specialist College. The college is relocating to the Brookfield site in Uxbridge, and our adult education offer will move into new surroundings at our Civic Centre. Currently, Orchard Hill College provides 73 places in the borough, but this move will allow the college to increase its provision with an additional 30 places. This is an excellent example of how this council is investing in young adults with special educational needs to progress on their own life's journey, and an excellent example of how this administration are utilising assets to the benefits for our residents. Work will shortly start on the creation of a special school satellite located at Harefield Academy. The current residential boarding block will be replaced by Meadow High School's satellite site for September 2024. Meadow High is the only council-maintained secondary special school has 257 students on roll at the last census. Meadow High is currently being rebuilt with a permanent classroom structures and a new dining hall on its original site, and students are taught on 3 separate pathways to meet the individual mix of learning difficulties, be it physical, social or other needs. 65 students will move to the new Harefield site into brand new purpose-built classrooms and spaces, and the cohort will increase up to 90 students over time. The overall capacity for both sites will be 354 places when all work is complete, and this will provide up to an additional 98 special educational needs places. Further developments that are working through the pipeline are specialist resource provision places. These places provide specialist support for students to make progress in their learning, allowing them to take part in mainstream school settings, and they will be located at the following primary schools: Charville Academy, Ruislip Gardens Primary School and Woodend Park Academy. And Ruislip Gardens Primary School will also be home to a Special Educational Needs Assessment Centre in readiness for September 2023. This new provision supports the delivery of the Dedicated Schools Grant Recovery Plan and is part of the Council's strategy for special school places that are now being programmed in all across the borough. This strategy is ambitious, aspirational and deliverable. It has fostered good relationships across academies and maintained schools and the local authority as we work together in the common goal to provide education for every child that lives in our borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Do we have a supplementary, Councillor Sullivan?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We now move on to question 7.4, submitted by Councillor Gohill to the Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Would the Leader please inform Council how the medium-term financial forecast is being impacted by the high level of inflation and how the Council is responding to the unexpected rise in expenditure?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Gohill, for your question. The month 2 budget report that was considered by Cabinet last week showed that, setting aside the legacy impact of COVID and the unfortunate and unforeseen rise in inflation, our expenditure is on track with a minor underspend forecast at the year end. However, we cannot, of course, set aside both that COVID impact and the rise in inflation. Prudently, though, the Council's budget for 2022-23 incorporated a substantial provision for inflation at £12 million, a considerable increase from the level in recent years and the 4.7 provided for the previous year. But even this level of provision is insufficient to cover the inflationary pressures we are experiencing. The Council is working closely with its suppliers and partners to understand these inflationary pressures, and it is not agreeing to across-the-board increases. It is in our interest that our suppliers and partners remain solvent, but it is also in our interest, and our residents' interests in particular, that we do not embed permanent costs increases where the cost may well be transitory. And I'm thinking here particularly of commodity costs, which are expected to fall to former levels in due course. In these circumstances, temporary support may well be provided. COVID continues to have an impact on the Council's finances as its legacy impacts unwind much more slowly than anticipated. It continues to have an adverse impact on both our income and expenditure. Demand for our services continues to be above the long-term trend, with increasing doubt that the COVID-related increase will be fully unwound within the MTF period. The good news is that we have sufficient earmarked reserves to cover the additional in-year expenditure, and no call is anticipated to be made on general reserves this year. But this only buys us time, as we cannot persist with the present level of expenditure and remain solvent without a significant increase in income from government and or residents. Whilst it is reasonable to assume government will provide additional funding to local authorities to help deal with the cost of inflation, it would be foolhardy to plan on this being provided pound for pound. Government has already terminated support for COVID-related pressures, and we must now manage those pressures ourselves. We are committed to be a low-tax authority, and there is much that we can and will do before we turn to our residents for more money. This administration has a track record of delivering savings year after year. On average, over £11 million of savings have been found each year for the past 10 years. And this not only needs to continue, but actually has to increase to around maybe £14 million per annum for the next 4 years. Our approach will not be to squeeze existing service budgets, but to change how we deliver services. I have said before how important it is for the Council to modernise, and the results of the staff survey undertaken in June confirm this, with only 1 in 3 of our staff agreeing that Hillingdon is a modern council. Also, less than half of our staff believe that teams within Hillingdon work well together to get the job done, which shows that inefficiencies continue to exist. I have previously advised Council of the £1 million in savings already achieved by reducing the top tier of management. Work has now commenced on the next tiers down, and we can expect to see further substantial reduction in management on costs moving forwards. This administration has the clarity of purpose and the confidence to drive transformational change. It will bring in the additional capacity and expertise to achieve this at pace. By the end of this administration, the Council will look and feel differently from within. It may also appear different to residents, but the services and support that they need will continue to be delivered. I can anticipate the charge being made that it will amount to cutting services, but this should not be the case. We will be protecting our frontline services, but possibly changing the way our residents receive them, and I make no apology for this, as they will be getting the same outcome, but a lower and sustainable cost. Residents can be assured that this Conservative administration will not duck the difficult decisions ahead, and that it will remain on their side, putting our residents first as we make the changes necessary that will maintain our reputation for sound financial management, low taxation, and delivery of high-quality services that residents have come to expect this Council. Thank you once again, Councillor Gohill, for your question.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Gohill?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We now move on to the order number 8, and it's the motions. And we have a motion 8.1 from Councillor Bianchi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Mayor of London is currently consulting on his plans to expand the ultra-low emission zone, otherwise known as the ULEZ, to the Greater London boundaries, which would include this borough. It is my simple contention that if it is expanded to include this borough, it will simply be a tax on our poorest residents. I would guess that if I were to ask for a show of hands from the people in this chamber tonight, who I would regard as reasonably affluent, asking those with non-compliant vehicles to raise their hands, very few hands would be raised, if any, as most of us would have vehicles that pass this test. This, however, would certainly not be the case if the same question was asked of our residents or those who come to the borough to work. However, before anyone accuses this administration of not caring about the air quality of this borough or the health of our residents, let me be quite clear that this council remains fully committed to improving the air quality of this borough, especially having one of the country's largest air polluters, Heathrow Airport, situated within its boundary. What this motion and the Mayor of London's proposal highlights is his complete ignorance of life in the outer suburbs, somewhere he rarely visits, and Hillingdon, where, to the best of my knowledge, he has never actually visited. Out here, we depend on our cars to get to work, or take our children to school, or go shopping, as there is precious little public transport, and what there is designed to take people in and out of the centre, not around the borough. Furthermore, there is a constant flow of people from outer-lying boroughs across the border into Hillingdon for work and other activities which will be impacted by this proposal. This impact will not just hit the council, but our partners such as the NHS and schools and the wider business community too. The Mayor's answer to these fundamental problems seems to be encapsulated in three themes. Firstly, he plans to improve public transport. Secondly, he suggests he will expand his scrappage scheme for old non-conforming vehicles. And thirdly, he wants to encourage people to walk or cycle. Let's examine his three suggestions a little more closely. The Mayor's first suggestion on improving public transport seems, to be polite, far-fetched. At a time when he is cutting back train and bus frequencies across the capital to save money, it seems unlikely that he will suddenly have vast cash reserves to invest in the many new and frequent bus and train services that would be needed in the outer London boroughs to provide a workable alternative, and the costs that would hit our lowest paid residents. Earlier this week, I was in a meeting with Councillor Butt, the leader of Brent Council, and his chief executive. Now, Brent is already within the existing ULEZ scheme, and they shared with me that more than 60% of their residents didn't have cars, and therefore the impact of the scheme has been fairly low for them. He did admit, however, that he himself had bought a new car to comply. In Hillingdon, the percentage of residents having one or more car is very significantly higher. This disparity between inner and outer London boroughs demonstrates to me the whole problem with the London-wide scheme. What might work in inner London boroughs, which are small in area and well served by public transport, will not work well in large outer London areas. The Mayor's second suggestion is to continue his scrappage scheme. To say this scheme is wholly inadequate is again being too polite. A single contribution of £2,000 to someone in need of a new car, someone typically on lower wages, someone typically already facing higher energy costs and inflation across the piece, shows a complete lack of understanding. Not only is the sum completely insufficient, but the fact that he is only granted a third of existing applicants underlines to me how utterly useless this is. The Mayor's third suggestion is that we all walk or cycle. Again, this clearly demonstrates his complete lack of understanding of how outer London boroughs work, and he's failed to register the size of the boroughs, the distance between centres and facilities, and the simple fact that walking or cycling whilst being very green is not practical. Madam Mayor, this council is opposed to the ULEZ expansion proposal and will be setting out in detail our objections to it in our response to the current consultation. I would, however, before closing, like to call on our Labour colleagues to join with us to send a clear, united message to the Mayor to underline that this is not a party political stand, but rather one for our residents and businesses. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bianco. Is that seconded?
Madam Mayor, I formally second and reserve my right.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Gohill?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a pleasure to be here representing the residents of Colham and Cowley. Madam Mayor, it was only 2 weeks ago when the Evening Standard revealed that the Labour Mayor of London is currently paying nearly 600 members of staff over £100,000 per year, at the sum of £59.7 million a year to TfL. At the same time, the Labour Mayor is axing 22 routes across the bus network and has already reduced the frequency on many routes, including the A10 that runs through my ward, Colham and Cowley, much to the dismay of residents. Why do I mention this? Because at a time when we desperately need further public transport in Hillingdon and London to offset car usage and to improve our air quality, the Labour Mayor continues to cut our services. At the same time, rather than dealing with the deficit that TfL has, he chooses to tax the poorest in our borough with the ULEZ charge, all while spending nearly £60 million on 597 TfL fat cats. Madam Mayor, as the youngest councillor in the chamber, I do worry about our air quality in the borough, as it's my future and the future of the next generations that are affected the most. But I do not believe that expanding ULEZ is the best way to fix this. As Councillor Bianco has said in his motion, a one-size-fits-all approach just does not work. This is not about cleaning up London's air. It's clearly a money-grabbing scheme which will not only disadvantage the poorest in Hillingdon, who won't be able to afford a compliant vehicle, even with the Mayor's pitiful scrappage scheme, but also disadvantage those on the border of London, who would have to pay £12.50 to go to Hillingdon Hospital in my ward, £12.50 to go to work at the many businesses across Hillingdon, and £12.50 to see family and loved ones, all without an adequate public transport system in place to replace a car. Therefore, Madam Mayor, I thank Councillor Bianco for raising this motion, and I'm pleased to use my maiden speech in this chamber to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Curling.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Air quality is something that we're all committed to improving, and in Hillingdon we have a long history of cross-party work on this issue. Whether it's through our planning policies, our climate emergency measures, or our steadfast opposition to the third runway at Heathrow. We also have a long history of our political groups speaking out against national or regional government decisions that conflict with the best interests of our local residents and businesses. Therefore, the Labour Group will be supporting this motion, and in doing so, we recognise that the problems around air quality and the health impact that it has is a serious one, and one that needs action on all fronts. Outer London, particularly boroughs like Hillingdon, are more akin to the home counties rather than central London. Indeed, as some of our boundary road signs proudly announce, we are in Middlesex. Much of what's good common sense for central London doesn't make any sense at all here in Middlesex. Having said that, the problems of air quality are the same, but I believe the solutions should be different. Personally, I don't sign up to the idea that you can pollute as much as you like as long as you pay for it, or the idea that anyone without the finances to buy a new car should be financially punished, especially during a cost of living crisis with inflation at a 40-year high and energy prices escalating out of all control. In a large geographical borough with limited public transport, particularly running north to south, and many of our residents reliant on care workers who are on low pay and need their cars to do their jobs, as well as many residents making a living in the private hire minicab industry, and residents in general who need their cars to go about their day-to-day business. The extension of the ULEZ is the wrong solution for this important problem. We welcome the Conservative Group's recognition of poverty and low pay in our borough, and we hope that this is one of many issues that they will champion, particularly with some of the draconian policies that the wannabe Prime Ministers are touting to their party members. And whilst we appreciate that there is a leadership battle going on nationally, and if the rumours are true locally, we also welcome the Conservative Group's U-turn on not being a lobbying council. And as such, we are happy to support this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Smallwood.
Madam Mayor, thank you for calling me to make my first speech as the Hillingdon Conservative Councillor for the beautiful town of Ruislip, a ward in part I know that you yourself ably represented until the last election. And it's a pleasure to speak to support my good friend Councillor Bianco's motion, because I am opposed to Mayor Khan's ULEZ expansion. In a time when the poorest Londoners are feeling the pinch, the Mayor has chosen to cover up his own financial mismanagement by hitting their pockets the hardest. The Mayor claims the reason for doing this is the success of the original ULEZ scheme, a scheme that I'm sure everybody here supported. But you cannot compare inner London with outer London. Frankly, that's like comparing apples with pears. Public transport has no way near the provisions it has in inner London it does in outer. In the less well-connected areas of this borough, many residents rely on their cars to get to work, to take their children to school, or to go to basic medical appointments. The plan hits the well-off in Hillingdon the hardest. £12.50 a day is an insult to the proud traditions that mayor claims to stand up for. Working class people in Hillingdon and London will suffer the most. He must take responsibility, listen to Londoners because they're sending him a message, rule this out. And the environmental argument is an important one. Hillingdon Conservatives have a proud record of standing up for our environment and the air quality in our borough. The shining example of this is the council's continued opposition to Heathrow expansion. And as Councillor Curling said, the cross-party work that we do, possibly one or two people in Jarville don't believe in that, but I know that's not Darren. So the mayor could, of course, with his £400 million set aside for the ULEZ expansion, consider the following. He could speed up his zero emissions bus fleet. He could support this council's work in our rapid charging point scheme. Or he could bring back the boiler cash scheme to encourage people to upgrade their boilers to reduce emissions. But we all know this mayor doesn't listen. His arrogance is exhausting, his political achievements are shallow, and he's failed London time and time again. From bankrupting TfL to losing control of crime and raising our tax to record highs. His only achievement is, though, rather remarkable. He makes Ken Livingstone look capable and reasonable. Madam Mayor, at a time when leadership positions are hot on people's minds, would it not be prudent of the Mayor to reshuffle his job around and install as a day Mayor somebody who will fight crime and cut taxes, and he can continue to be the nightmare he has always been? Madam Mayor, I encourage residents to respond to the ULEZ consultation and encourage all members to support this excellent motion. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And we now go back to Councillor Avery with the right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will keep my contributions to tonight short on the basis that my new colleagues have eloquently made most of the points that I would have made. This proposal is a poorly thought out attempt to plug the hole in TfL finances at the expense of our residents and those who visit this borough for work or social reasons, and those who use our high streets, a matter we may well come to later on. At £12.50 a day, for those who can least afford it, that is a substantial cost to them, and they will respond by not visiting. I am keen to improve air quality and for us to be carbon neutral by 2030, and I do have cabinet responsibility for these matters, and this administration will deliver on its promises in these areas, but not at a cost of imposing further costs at this time on our residents. The burden of this charge will be most acutely felt by vulnerable residents who will face huge additional costs and will not have the funds to acquire a newer vehicle. My colleagues have already referenced the differences between inner and outer London. We are different in terms of the distances travelled and the public transport linkages available. Zone 1 mayors do not understand this key difference, and there has been no attempt to improve public transport links in outer London. There is a small exception to that. We do now have a north-south bus link funded by S106, because that's the only way that you can get any money out of TfL. But given TfL's finances, I don't see any more of those coming. I'm pleased that the Labour group are going to support this motion, and I do hope that all councillors will individually write to the Mayor to emphasise the depth of feeling in Hillingdon against this proposal. I support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. If there are no other speakers, okay, Councillor Bianco, the right to...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I'll be brief, as we have unanimity. That word was almost the hardest of my entire speech. This borough does remain committed to our green agenda, as my colleagues have reiterated. This ULEZ proposal is a step too far, and it's not suited to this part of London, and we must oppose it. And I share with Councillor Lavery his suggestion, his recommendation, that we all write individually as well as collectively to oppose this proposal. The Mayor needs to listen to us. It would be even nicer if he came to visit and see for himself. And if anyone on this side has any influence with him, please do invite him. We'd like to meet him and love to show him the issues that are outstanding. Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bianco. We will now go to the vote in a show of hands. If you can vote those in favour, please raise your hand. Fantastic. Thank you. You can put your hands down. Those against? No, so we shall move the motion. We now go on to the order sheet and motion 8.2 from Councillor Curling, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move this motion in recognition that the Stop and Shop scheme was brought in some time ago by the previous Conservative leadership. It was introduced because the administration of the day recognised that local businesses and the local economy is a vital part of our wider community, and in order for our residents to thrive, we need a thriving and vibrant local economy. The right to be a customer of local businesses in Hillingdon is not some sort of territorial right on where you live or whether you hold a Hillingdon First card. Our local businesses deserve a council that does everything it can to enhance the local economy and encourage people to come from far and wide so that they can spend their money in our borough and thereby contribute to our local economy. Over the years, there has been petition after petition from residents and local businesses to have a stop and shop scheme in their local town centre or their out-of-town shopping parades. And these schemes have been extremely popular, and I'm sure with the help of many have helped many local businesses attract trade from those passing by who can park free for 30 minutes by simply pressing a button and getting a ticket. No payment, no fuss, no confusion. There's also the problem of the pay and display ticket machines themselves because they're hardly user-friendly, especially to the elderly. I've heard some quite distressing stories of elderly people who just can't get the machines to work. The simple action of pressing a single button for a free 30-minute ticket has now changed to a process where you have to press the button, present your Hillingdon First card to the card reader. It then takes ages to register, then remove it, then press another button. And Madam Mayor, you can see why most elderly people just give up. With the council's precarious financial situation, along with the high level of inflation for 40 years and the ever-increasing costs of running the council, with more hindrance than help from a broken Conservative government, I can understand why the current administration is looking for ways to generate income and save money. However, as with the motion on the ULEZ, this is clearly the wrong solution. Our residents and our local businesses deserve better than this from their council. A Labour council that would place itself at the centre of the community would not have done this. Indeed, we would have set about a programme of community wealth building and valued our local businesses. I get the impression that the current Conservative administration is trying to learn from Labour's recent successes in the local elections, where our campaign was based around working in partnership with our residents and local businesses, rather than dictate to them from on high. So this is an opportunity for them to prove that they will listen. Perhaps we're in this situation because of the arrogant we-know-best attitude of the party opposite. Perhaps it's a mistake that slipped through because maybe the current leader's not quite so on the ball with the finances as the previous leader. Who knows? But this motion puts all that to one side, and hopefully the Conservative group can agree this motion, and in doing so commit the Cabinet Member for Resident Services and the Council's Champion for the Elderly to engage with local business organisations, elderly people's organisations and residents in general, so that this disastrous change to the shop and stop scheme is reversed. Madam Mayor, I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Curling. Is this seconded, please?
Madam Mayor, I second and reserve my right.
Thank you, Councillor Mathers. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Punjal?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to address the Council for the first time. Madam Mayor, the Stop and Shop scheme was part of the Council's Total Approach Plan in 2016 that was focused on intelligent regeneration, making a real difference rather than going for quick wins. The crucial part of the scheme was to encourage visitors from outside of the borough to be able to stop and shop in our high streets for 30 minutes without incurring charges. A quick stop for a coffee, something to eat, or pop to the bank, for example, was made easier and indeed encouraged people to stop and shop. High street businesses across the borough really benefited from the scheme as Hillingdon Council made sure parking was not an issue. As a local business owner, I can relay this from my own customers, colleagues, family and friends, as I'm sure you all can as councillors. Madam Mayor, it is extremely clear, since these parking charges were introduced, that residents both north and south of the borough are extremely unhappy. Businesses are complaining of its significant impact on trade, and what was once a lure to stop and shop has now become the signpost to drive through. We are in a cost of living crisis where people have less disposable income to shop on our high streets, and following the COVID pandemic, where high street businesses suffered huge losses and even lost their businesses, it is our responsibility as members of this council to ensure that we are working to provide opportunity and enable our high streets to thrive, not punish them for staying alive. So a council that is able to put in place intelligent regeneration must use its intelligence to analyse negative feedback on this revision and realise that this quick win solution for the council is at the detriment to the people of Hillingdon. Madam Mayor, in order to support the growth of our business in our high streets across Hillingdon and to encourage our residents to once again stop and shop, I urge the council to reconsider these parking charges and support this motion enabling visitors to park for free. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I speak in opposition to this motion. The simple reality is that our motivation for the removal of the first 30 minutes of parking for non-residents is driven by a desire to minimise the cost burden that falls upon our residents, and surely, given the current pressures and cost of living, that has seldom been more important or more relevant. This action was included within the consultation budget, which was issued in December 2021, and indeed also in the final budget presented by me in February of this year. Furthermore, it was not commented on or challenged by the opposition in their, I might add, defeated budget amendment at that time. The simple reality is that this measure, as framed, contributes a total of £690,000 of income to our current year annual budget. That is £472,000 from on-street parking and £118,000 from off-street. The impact of cancelling this would have the effect of raising our core council tax increase for the current financial year from 0.9% to 1.5%. That is an upward increase of 56%. I do recognise that we need to listen to and learn from the experiences of our business community, who I'm anxious to support, but this impact assessment upon them can only rationally and sensibly be made over an extended period such as 6 months to a year. We will therefore consider its impact on business after such a period has elapsed. But I might also emphasise that what we're talking about here is a charge of 50 pence for a 30-minute session. So I do have reservations as to whether this is actually frightening people away from that first 30 minutes of parking. Madam Mayor, we're now living in a highly challenging economic environment, and members will have to accept that this is likely to be the first of a number of tough decisions which lie ahead of us. In implementing this measure, we have once again put residents first, and therefore I oppose this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Sweeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Residents and businesses throughout our borough and Hillingdon high streets are saying with one voice that the new parking charges and arrangements are negatively influencing how we stop and shop. Footfall is lower and custom is down. Not only are the ticket machines proving to be difficult to use, and temperamental. Isn't technology absolutely wonderful? Not always. But prices have risen significantly, and the half-hour free parking for non-residents has ceased. And Hillingdon residents are finding that they now have to use Hillingdon First cards to deliver their free half-hour, very confusing. The council thought that charging non-residents for parking in our high streets to shop would bring in substantial cash to shore up the council's finances. However, this wheeze has backfired, as not only has this cash cow not moved very much and brought forth huge amounts of financial cream, but it has also taken away custom from our already financially battered high streets and from the pockets of our residents, who are themselves very bruised and battered by this rising prices tsunami. Warnings of the price hike were made by Labour members in my select committee, advising that increasing fees in this way would not be beneficial, but the policy ploughed on regardless. And now both Labour Red and Tory Blue areas of the borough are saying it needs fixing. So will it be fixed? Will we soon have the motion supported by all in this chamber or not? Are we actually going to be putting our residents first? In hopeful anticipation that this motion will be carried by us all, I thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, a bit of history. I suspect a little known fact to most people in this chamber. Many years ago in Cabinet, I pressed for 30 minutes free parking for Islip High Street. That's not the machine, that's in Cabinet. And I have to say, against the advice of the then Cabinet member and his officer team, that Cabinet member is long gone from this authority many, many years ago. Fortunately, Councillor Puddifoot sided with me, which of course trumped everything, as it usually did. So half an hour duly started in Ruislip, and it was rolled out across the borough to wide acclaim and a resounding success. One of the hallmarks of Residents First, and it's played an important part in building the strength of our distinctive brand in this borough, a feature of which has been lower charges than neighbouring local authorities. So, Madam Mayor, we need no lessons on this side of the chamber on the importance of an appropriate charging regime to help keep our high streets thriving, with a decent range of quality goods and services which are readily accessible, not least after the upheavals of the last 2 years, and taking account too of changing shopping patterns which are driven by consumers. Madam Mayor, we are in frequent dialogue with our traders in Ruislip, and I'm sure that goes for many of us across our wards, as it should, given the part our businesses play in the community and the local economy. But there is always a balance to be struck between doing this and wider fiduciary duty, and there can be some fine judgments along the way against the backdrop of significant inflationary pressures which we're hearing about. Cabinet has made an undertaking to keep this matter under review based on evidence of the impact of these changes, which I'd expect us to be doing as a matter of course. Madam Mayor, I've spoken before in this chamber about the importance of select committees playing the critical friend role in holding Cabinet to account, which is the right and proper way to do this, rather than directing Cabinet now in this arbitrary way, and may perhaps end up limiting the full scope of what action they can take. We can do this both formally in committee and informally through direct engagement with Cabinet. And while this motion is neither necessary nor appropriate, let there be no doubt that if in due course evidence indicates there is a compelling case for making changes, we won't be shy in saying so. Madam Mayor, knockabout in the chamber, which is the small change of local politics, is one thing, if you like that sort of thing, but really this motion serves no other purpose. In the end, this all comes down to following due process. Madam Mayor, we oppose the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Labour.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It will come as no surprise that I am going to oppose this motion. Councillor Goddard has already set out the financial implications arising from this charge. I also note that the motion comes up with a rather novel suggestion for how the council should set its fees and charges, being determined by others rather than the council. I'm not sure any administration would agree to that. I also, if my recollection is entirely correct, note that neither that Labour voted for this as part of the budget and certainly didn't reference it in their amendments back in February. Our residents continue to get 30 minutes free parking using their Hillingdon First card, an achievement that this administration is very proud of. The machines do have clear instructions, and if there are issues with them, those do need to be reported to council officers, and we will investigate and ensure they are working correctly. As part of my portfolio of responsibilities, I have high streets as well as parking charges now, so I will carefully review the impact of these changes on our high streets with evidence, and I say with evidence. It is too early yet for us to be clear on the pattern of what will emerge, but they will be reviewed as part of the build of the budget of next year, when we will review all fees and charges. We will be making it easier to pay for parking by introducing pay-by-phone parking, but we will be maintaining preferential parking rates for our residents. I oppose the motion.
Thank you. Going back to Councillor Mathers, you reserved your right to reply. Sorry. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much. I will have louder jazz hands next time. Madam Mayor, this motion reveals a lot more than it probably intends. We agree that, regrettably, it has become less convenient for our residents to obtain free pay and display parking tickets now that they have to use their Hillingdon First card. But this will soon be greatly alleviated once, as we have heard, the option of pay by phone is introduced. And yes, we will, as we has always done, review any change to ensure that it delivers the intended outcome. But that is where our agreement with this motion ends. Although the motion suggests that alternatives to this charge exist, it is a binary choice. You either levy it or you don't. And if you don't, it begs the question of how do you recover the lost income? The failure of the Labour motion to propose an alternative means of raising that income shows once again their irresponsible approach to finance. But I'm not surprised. The only plausible alternative is to raise council tax, as we've heard from Councillor Goddard, or maybe increase a different fee or charge. Either would mean our residents having to pay to provide free parking for non-residents. Clearly, Labour are not on our residents' side. They do not put them first. And let us not forget that this change has been in the public domain since early December. In the months before our budget proposal was finalised, we heard much from the opposition about the need to better consult on it. And it now seems as though their time would have been better spent actually reading it rather than lecturing others on to do so. And most surprisingly, well, certainly to Labour it seems, they not only voted for this charge when they voted for our budget, but they also put it forward themselves when they included it in their own budget proposal. So there we have it, a populist motion that denies financial reality, a motion that puts the interest of non-residents before its own residents, and a motion that shows Labour to have been asleep at the wheel. It is no wonder that we are opposing it.
Thank you. Councillor Mathers, you reserved your right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, this motion is about listening to residents and making their lives less complicated, especially in these difficult times. It asks the council to recognise residents' concerns, something the administration wants to vote against. It asked them to engage with residents and forums, something they wish to vote against. They didn't listen to the Select Committee when this was raised, and they did misunderstand the budget amendment. Hillingdon Labour is listening to residents. We spent 18 months before the election, as we had continually before, listening to residents, their concerns and worries, particularly about this Conservative administration. We heard their worries about the Conservatives' managed decline of services and customer care for residents, of which there is still a major problem. We heard their concerns also of the Conservative government's mishandling of the cost of living crisis, impacting where we are now, the underfunding of councils and the underfunding of TfL. Since the elections, many residents have reiterated their concerns about this. They've reiterated their concerns about the local Conservatives not listening, which includes, for now, local MP Boris Johnson. Now is the time for this administration to sit up and listen to residents across the borough. They ask for the Mayor of London to listen, but they do not do it themselves. They boast of making millions of savings, but cannot find £600,000 to benefit residents if that amount is achieved through this measure. Residents were worried about the undeclared and unidentified savings the Conservatives had to make before the election. Now they are worried even more. Simply implementation of these parking charges, residents have stated their concerns about the complicated machines, something which was reviewed around payments in a select committee, but still the investment wasn't given to proper parking machines. They're worried about the delays by using the Hillingdon First card, and they're worried about local businesses. And local businesses have stated their concerns about the difficulty of stop and shop. It takes longer to get a ticket from the machine than to pop in and get your pint of milk. Local businesses can especially not afford these barriers to change. This administration needs to listen and take action to create new measures that residents tell them are not working, excuse the noise. Maybe this could be applied to other plans. I'm sure the residents of Useley would love the administration to listen and to respond to their concerns about the development of the Useley Recreation Ground. Hillingdon Labour is listening, and Hillingdon Labour will work with residents to resolve issues and correct new measures that do not work, so we can build a better borough. I urge everyone to support this motion.
Are there any other speakers before I call Councillor Curling? No?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As ever, I'm not surprised by the decision opposite, but I am disappointed. I doubt whether the 690,000 saving will actually happen, because the experience so far, and it's only been the change has only been implemented for a matter of weeks, but so far, all the reports that I'm getting from across the borough is that the local businesses are losing trade because people are now just not bothering to stop and shop. And that, whether they are Hillingdon residents or not, they don't really want the hassle of what they've got to go through to just nip in and buy a bottle of milk. So, so I don't think the savings will, or the income will actually happen. I would also like to point out that most local business owners are residents as well, and this stop and shop scheme was really to help the local businesses. So okay, we put residents first, but we don't give a damn about the local businesses. Is that where the administration is coming from this time round? I would welcome the support of the party opposite, but obviously not going to get it. However, I do look forward in 6 months' time, or maybe at the next budget setting meeting, for this to be reversed, because like always, when anything Labour suggests that's a good idea, it's rubbished. It's rubbished by our colleagues opposite, and then 6 months later they implement it. So I look forward to the 6 months' time when they implement our idea. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We will now be voting on the motion 8.2 by a show of hands. Those in favour of the motion, please show your hands. Thank you. Those against the motion? Thank you. I can confirm that the motion has not been passed.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can I bring a point of order, please? Councillor Nelson West, as you're using abusive language, and it's been the 5th time tonight I've witnessed it. Please, can we take action on this? Thank you.
I haven't actually heard any abusive...
So from where I'm sitting, I can hear the language under his breath thrown as a cough. I do not appreciate to hear it, and I think it shows a great disrespect to yourself. Thank you.
Hold on a minute. Can we just have order? Thank you. I'd just like to advise you, Councillor Nelson West, just to moderate your language. If that is the case, please, especially in here, in the council chambers. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. We are now going to be moving on to 8.3. The motion from Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, this motion is calling on the Council to recognise Black History Month in the Borough is back on this agenda. The Council decision to remove the activities of Black History Month in 2007 as a standalone cultural activities in the borough. It is a deliberate denial of Black communities' contribution to its growth and progress over many generations. For this reason, we are calling on this Council yet again to not only recognize but to reinstate Black History Month with effect from October 2022. With all due respect, I would like to challenge fellow Conservative councillors, including Councillor Lewis, regarding his previous address to this Council and his reasons for voting against reinstating Black History Month activities. This is an event that used to take place once a year in the month of October. Councillor Lewis comments on the great late Martin Luther King Jr. and compared the state of racism in America society to Hillingdon. To measure inequality and racism in this way is highly inappropriate because the society and experience of Black people are totally different. For example, gun laws in America are not the same as in the UK. Therefore, crime statistics will reflect this. However, that does not mean that because we have less race crime, do we stop honoring Black History Month? Regardless of what this Council's opinion may be of American society, since the death of the late Martin Luther King Jr., Black Americans have seen progress. It is a fact that Black History Month has been and continue to be celebrated every year, beginning at the White House. After many years of campaigning, the Windrush statue was unveiled at Waterloo this year. This statue has brought to the surface the understanding of the importance of celebrating our history. It is a timely reminder for reflection and inspiration to Black communities as an education tool in local boroughs and schools. It should be noted that the current Prime Minister, Member of Parliament in Uxbridge, acknowledged Black History Month, in addition to members of the royal family. I find it necessary to question the level and weight of importance that you as council members give to putting our residents first. The black community must be given the opportunity to celebrate their achievement, assuming it is your intention, councillors, to put in them first. It should not be minimized or diluted to fit under the umbrella of diversity as a political statement. Madam Mayor, sadly, many of the Windrush generation are no longer with us, but Black History Month and the Windrush statue is a celebration of their contribution and achievement during their lifetime in communities all across the United Kingdom. On their behalf, we must dig deeper, we must look closer, and we must think bigger. Because it is time, Council, it is time to reinstate Black History Month in the London Borough of Hillingdon. It is time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Could you just turn your mic off for me, please? Thank you. Is this seconded, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of Black History Month is to raise awareness of past injustices, sacrifices, and equality for the black community. Also, this is used as an opportunity to remember the huge contribution that African and Caribbean diaspora have made to the British society. Black community suffered a lot in the past, and their history and contribution to the society has been overlooked, ignored, misrepresented, and distorted for too long. They face unemployment, discrimination, and criminal injustice due to their racial identity. Initially, Black History Month was a way of teaching young people and students about the contribution of black community. Such stories had been largely forgotten and were a neglected part of the national narrative. Now it's seen as a celebration of those who have impacted not just the one country but the world with their activism and achievements. Today, Black History Month has become an important date in the cultural calendar of many of the UK museums, galleries, and local authorities. It is our turn now to celebrate and recognize Black History Month in Hillingdon, to highlight and recognize the events and people who have shaped our community and society. Black history cannot be contained or limited to a month, but it is a good reminder when we can dedicate a whole month to celebrate the power and resilience and honor the struggle and immense contribution of black people. Also, to understand black history and their rich cultural heritage, go beyond discussion of racism, highlight their accomplishments and vital role they have played in the history of this country. Madam Mayor, by considering this motion tonight, we can acknowledge the history of honor, pain, and sacrifice faced by the black community over the centuries. I support and second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sweeting.
Madam Mayor, I ask you to read very carefully the simple wording of this motion. It merely states that this council recognises Black History Month. Maybe this simple and powerful statement from a councillor who has brought this very personal issue to us many times before will be answered by some in this chamber who will say that Hillingdon Council does already recognise Black History Month. But it is with sadness rather than anger that I say we don't. If you think so, please show us the evidence. Even the wording of Black History Month is never used. Black history, yes. Black History Month, no. nor is the month of October, when Black History Month is celebrated and commemorated by councils nationwide, commemorated in Hillingdon. So I ask that from now on we do indeed recognise openly and with pride Black History Month this October and for Octobers to come, with events and celebrations. For Black history is, as Theresa May said some time ago, British history. London councils of all political hues recognise and celebrate Black History Month. These include Conservative councillors such as Wandsworth and Westminster, yes, who celebrated Black History Month in the past with many events and celebrations, and where they will continue to do so as new Labour councils. Conservative Prime Ministers May and Johnson have also celebrated Black History Month by saying in separate statements over the years that it provides a fantastic opportunity for us all to recognise the outstanding contributions people with African and Caribbean descent have made to our country. However, Hillingdon Council, unlike many other London boroughs and councils up and down the land, has decided that mere lip service to our black community is enough. It isn't. So once again I say, please recognise Black History Month with pride and some vitality, with events and celebrations in the month of October, so that those with that heritage know that they are valued, and all of us are educated to know their unique contribution to our community and to our nation. Please, Hillingdon Council, make the word recognise have some meaning and have some bite. I thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Punja.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Black History Month in October has been recognised in this country by the government since 1987, putting a spotlight on black achievement so that African and Caribbean people can share and celebrate their fantastic contributions in Britain and global societies. The opportunity to break down racial barriers and integrate our communities is vital, and continued engagement with history helps give context for all communities for the present. Therefore, any council who is in governance for the whole borough and its residents would wholly recognise that Black History Month brings significant value to its local people. It is no longer good enough for the council to retort the tokenistic gesture of we celebrate all diversities year round, but do nothing to inspire our African and Caribbean communities and continue to ignore this well-celebrated festival of black achievement. It is not up to us, whose identities have not been affected by slavery and racism, to determine what should and should not be observed. Our unconscious bias cannot give us the right to eliminate this education of black histories from our communities. Councils across the country have found that engagement during Black History Month leads to positive impacts, yet Hillingdon Council chooses to abstain. Madam Mayor, in agreeing to this motion statement, this day forward, the residents of Hillingdon can look forward to a full calendar month of Black History activities, proactively organised and supported by the Council across the borough. This year, the focus of Black History Month in October is health and wellness. Post-pandemic, Madam Mayor, I feel this is a good place to start. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. The whole Chamber stands united in the promotion of equality and the rejection of all forms of discrimination. But on the issue of Black History Month, we disagree with the opposition. It has been the policy of the Conservative administration since 2008 to celebrate throughout the whole year the diverse communities and cultures found in our borough, and this will continue. We are exceedingly proud of those communities and the contribution that they each bring to our borough. I believe they have integrated well to form a strong, cohesive community, and this administration does not believe in promoting one community group over another. We believe all residents should be equally valued and championed, and that is what we do. I won't list all the events that the Council has held or promoted over the last months to celebrate the history and culture of our diverse communities, but I will highlight those held to celebrate the contribution and history of African Caribbean people, and in particular to inspire those people to achieve. They include an event with the author Hafsa Zayan on her debut novel We Are All Birds of Uganda, that makes arguments about immigration and identity. The celebration of diversity through poetry with poet Andrina Lian, the 2008 Black History Month Role Model winner. A panel discussion on voices from the African diaspora on black excellence in British literature culture. A talk with the author, Lest We Forget, Britain's Black Regiments, that celebrates the contribution that Caribbean soldiers made to this country in the 2 world wars and many colonial campaigns. And a talk, Deep Are the Roots, with an author celebrating the pioneers of black British theatre. At the risk of repeating myself, this administration does not believe that we should educate our residents for a month every year about the contribution that black people have made, but we should celebrate and educate throughout the whole year. And that is what we have been doing, and that is what we shall continue to do. Madam Mayor, this side of the chamber will not be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Corr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As someone who's extremely passionate about equality and diversity celebrations, I stand to speak in favour of Councillor Nelson's motion as my maiden speech representing the Wooden Ward. The Black History Month was originally founded to recognise the contributions that people of African and Caribbean backgrounds have made to the UK over many generations. Now the month has expanded to include the history of not just African and Caribbean people, but black people in general. I believe to recognize Black History Month in word and spirit is to acknowledge that there is no room for racism and any other form of discrimination in a civilized society as ours. It is to acknowledge that a lot more still needs to be done, even in this day and age, to ensure that no one finds himself or herself in a disadvantaged position because of the color of their skin. It is also to face the facts that 85% of black people are not confident that they would be treated the same as a white person by the police. Over 60% of black people in the UK do not believe their health is equally protected by the NHS compared to white people. 25% of black voters in Great Britain are not registered to vote compared to 17% across the population, according to the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Human Rights 11th Report, Session 2019-21. Further, an ITV survey has found that almost 2/3 of black and minority ethnic members of parliaments have experienced some sort of racism while working in the parliament. Madam Mayor, to recognize or the recognition of Black History Month is also to acknowledge that Hillingdon Council has a moral responsibility to put things in practice, to do all it can to help alter not only that perception, but also the reality on the ground, and to help make positive change. It is an opportunity for the Council to reflect if it is doing enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers before I call Councillor Nelson? No? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's such a shame, really, that this administration doesn't understand the importance of Black History Month to our community, does not understand what the celebration of it is all about in October to our community. And still, and yet still continue to ignore the calls by our residents who comes to us and keep asking us, why is it that this council does not celebrate our history? The leader raised issues about poetry, dance. How is this getting out to our community? How is this resonate with our community? Where is it advertised for our community? So, ain't nothing that you say can reassure me in any way that you take our history seriously. That's a real shame. And I will continue as long as I am a councillor here to bring this issue every time to this chamber. And shame on you, just shame on you. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. We will now be voting on 8.3 on the motion from Councillor Nelson. We will have a recorded vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Perhaps for the benefit of newer members and members of the public alike, I'll just summarise that. Voting in the Chamber is generally done in three different ways. There's a general agreement, such as we did earlier on the minutes. There is a more formal show of hands, such as we've done on the previous motions. And then there is this, which is a named vote. And in the named vote, I will call on each member in turn in alphabetical order, starting with you, Councillor Abbey. Not yet. And you will indicate whether you are voting in favour of the motion from Councillor Nelson, against it, or abstaining. The main difference being that your vote gets individually recorded in the minutes. So, Councillor Abbey.
For the motion.
Councillor Banerjee.
Against.
Councillor Bassett. You can just shout out, you don't need to press the... Thank you. Councillor Bennett. Councillor Batt. Councillor Bianco. Councillor Bridges. Councillor Burles. Councillor Rita Chamdal. Councillor Roy Chamdal. Councillor Chapman. Councillor Chubadar. Councillor Cawthorne. Councillor Curling. Councillor Davies. Councillor Dennis. Councillor Dott. Councillor Edwards. Councillor Farley. Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gaelic. Councillor Garg. Councillor Goddard. Councillor Gohill. Councillor Higgins. Councillor Islam. Councillor Judge Dott. Councillor Kaur.
For.
Councillor Lakmana. Councillor Lavery. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Makwana. Councillor Mand. Councillor Mathers. Councillor D. Mills. Councillor R. Mills. Councillor Nelson. Councillor Nelson West. Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Palmer. Councillor Punja. Councillor Riley. Councillor Sansapuri. Councillor Singh. Councillor Smallwood. Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Sweeting. Councillor Tuckwell. Mr. Deputy Mayor. Against. Madam Mayor.
Against.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That motion is lost. 29 votes to 21.
Thank you. The motion has not been passed. I'd now like to close this council meeting of tonight. Thank you very much.